Alright, people, review of the week time. So, a lot to get into, a lot to talk about, a lot to preview as well, people. Before we talk about the fights that happened over the weekend, just again, honestly, massive shout out to everyone who came out on Thursday night, and thank you so much to Ade for having me on as a guest on his live show. It was incredible. It was honestly incredible. Yeah, and seeing the footage of it now, because obviously it was recorded, it's on his channel now. It looks really, really good. David Alai coming out there, it was just amazing. So, big up to everyone who came for a pick after it. Yeah, it was brilliant. It really, really was. Let's talk boxing. Let's talk about, before we go into Canelo Crawford, Parker Wardley, let's talk about the fights that took place over the weekend. So, I kicked off on Friday night, the Tree Arena in Dublin. Michael Connellan headlined. And I have to say, right, Michael Connellan, after that Jordan Gill fight, I was like, oh my God. Like, I thought Michael Connellan was done. Because Jordan Gill would go on to lose his very next fight to Zelfa Barrett in pretty one-sided fashion as well. Because Jordan Gill has always been kind of domestic level, like fringe European domestic level type of fighter. So I thought, right, Connellan, all right, doesn't take the best shot in the world, but he is still better than Jordan Gill. So I thought. And in that fight, I mean, it's actually painful to watch how Connellan just couldn't take a shot. It was really dire. I was thinking there's no coming back from that. But he's now hooked up with Grant Smith. I think Grant Smith is a very underrated trainer. I think he's one of the best in Britain. I think given the fact that he's not in London and most of the fighters base themselves out of London, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But I think that he can do great work with a lot of fighters. And I always felt that Adam Boot, Michael Connellan, that never really, for me, it never clicked. I don't think Connellan had, I've said this once about Adam Boot and I'll say it again, I've nothing against him personally. I think that he is very good in the mental aspect of boxing. He's very good from a psychological point of view with his fighters. I think he does have a background in sports psychology as well, which if he does, it kind of shows because he is very good at that. But one thing about Adam Boot, you kind of have to have really good athleticism, really good reflexes, really long arms, and really good punching power to make the style that he teaches work. If you don't have like, say you've got like, say 5 things, right, that you need, and you only have 4 of them, the style pretty much just comes apart. I mean, you look at someone like a Josh Kelly, he's not got the punching power or the arm length to pull that style off. Sooner or later, he's going to get battered again, you know? And it's styled on a young fighter, really. You know, when you get into your late 20s, early 30s, that style it's not feasible. So I think Michael Connellan should have left Adam Boot years ago against Jack Bateson. Jack Bateson was very limited in there. He was down in round number 3. I thought that was a bit of a dubious knockdown, to be honest with you. The one in round 4 was legit, and he appeared to damage and injure his ankle as he got up, so no point carrying on. Your ankle's gone, so fair play, referee waved it, no problem there. It's a good win for Connellan, and it was electric atmosphere in Dublin, as I knew it would be. It looked really good. A lot of people now are talking about Michael Connellan, Josh Warrington, given the fact that the negotiations for a Lee Wood rematch have now apparently broken down, which I don't really understand why they, but I can imagine why. I mean, Lee Wood coming at the back of a loss, Josh Warrington didn't look that bad last time out. Did he fight I think he fought in Riyadh, or he fought on an undercard, I remember that, and I think it was in Riyadh. He didn't look that bad, Josh Warrington, he really didn't. He looked pretty okay, pretty decent. So, Josh Warrington, I don't know, do they want like crazy money or something like that? I don't know. But Mick Connellan was someone who was mentioned with Josh Warrington as well. I think that was mentioned actually in the past before we were starting to hear about Lee Wood, the rematch with him, with Josh Warrington. Listen, if they did Josh Warrington versus Michael Connellan next, I'd be all for it. I'd watch it. I doubt either guy is going to win a world title at featherweight. I doubt it very much. I really doubt it. But I would watch it. I would make Josh Warrington favourite, because I think Josh Warrington still has that little bit more left in the tank. I don't think he should be campaigning at 130 pounds. I think 126 is his limit. And I think that Warrington had the better career and he is the better fighter of the two. It's as simple as that. So I would make Josh Warrington favourite, but Connellan would be game. He'd be game in there. So if they do that fight next, I'd be all for it. As I said, this was a decent show. I didn't really see many of the other fights on the undercard. I did see that, what's his name? Charlie Edwards picked up a win after his last performance. I would gladly never watch Charlie Edwards again after his last performance. That was awful. I'm not even going to bring the fight up. It was horrendous. It was on a Queensbury show. Obviously, we get to last night. We had the show up in, was in Sunderland, wasn't it? It was in Tyne-Wear, which I think is Sunderland. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I don't know the north of the UK as well as I do the south. But Pat McCormick, back to winning ways. It was a good performance. It was a decent fight. He stopped the guy in 9 rounds. They did. I seen he hurt him. Did he drop him? I can't remember now. But he did hurt him at the back end of round number 9, and the corner just pulled him out after that. Listen, I know you could say there was only 1 round to go, but you don't know what he's feeling internally, so I don't mind them pulling him out with 1 round to go. Pat McCormick is a decent fighter. Problems though. 30 years old. Got to make hay while the sun shines. It's not his fault. This is only his 8th fight. It's not his fault. Well, I say it's not his fault. When he turned over in 22, he turned over with Pro Bellum. Now, if you don't remember, if you're a newer kind of boxing fan and you don't know who Pro Bellum are, or were, they're gone now. They didn't last that long. There was MTK, which was a managerial group, and it stood for Mac the Knife. Or it used to be called MGM, and they literally took the MGM logo. It's amazing they were allowed to use it for as long as they were before they ended up having to change it. And they managed a lot of fighters, managed Tyson Fury amongst others. Obviously, the people who were heading up MTK were naughty. We'll use that word. And you got the impression that like all these promotional companies, popping up like Pro Bellum, they were heavily linked to MTK. They got onto Eurosport. I think they only ran like 3 or 4 shows. Sonny Edwards was signed to them. Troy Williamson, who fought on this card, actually fought on the very first show against Mason Cartwright. And they had Eurosport deal. They had a lot going. And then, like that, it was just gone. It's just gone. It just gone. So that really, and obviously Pat McCormick was signed to them, so that really screwed him. Like it really did. It really screwed him. It stagnated his career. Now he's with Matchroom. Got to get a move on with him. Simple as. I seen the Mark Dickinson versus Troy Williamson fight. Mark Dickinson missed weight by over 5 pounds. Ridiculous. Pathetic attempt at making weight by him. And he was punished accordingly by Troy Williamson, who, I've seen him at 154 pounds. He was definitely drained at that weight. He seems to fit the super middleweight division quite well, to be honest with you. He really does. So, Troy Williamson, let's go. Let's see what else you have. Leo Atang fought on this card. I didn't see that fight, but he got a first round stoppage win, 230 pounds. He is Eddie Hearn dancer, it seems, to Moses Atelma. Kid's 18 years old. Did box, obviously he boxes as an amateur, we know that. But yeah, 18 years old. He's got ability there, certainly, but I'd be very surprised if he has the levels to his game as a Moses Atelma, because Atelma was doing incredible things when he was a mere teenager, much less at 18. So Atelma is really one of them. But he's going to be back out on the Dave Allen show. That's up in Sheffield on October the 11th. That's actually shaped to be a decent card, to be fair. Josh Padley, Reece Bellini, that's a good fight. It's an interesting little card, actually. That's going to be a good one to watch as well, to be fair. So they were the 2 fights over the course of the weekend. And now we get into the business end of things, people. It's fight week. We have a decent undercard for Canelo versus Terence Crawford. I'm looking forward to seeing Callum Smith, Callum Walsh on there. Sergey Boachuk versus Brendan Adams. That's going to be a good fight. We also have, who else do we have? We also have Christian Mbile versus Lester Martinez. Equally good. Ivan Ditchko versus Jermaine Franklin. Ivan Ditchko was stopping a lot of guys. He's only gone the distance once. So him against Franklin, that's going to be fun, man. It's going to be real good fun. Who did he go the distance with, actually? Who did he go the distance with? He went the distance with a guy, Kevin Espinode, who had been stopped before. But yeah, Ivan Ditchko versus Jermaine Franklin is going to be a good fight. But Canelo I'm so used to saying it. Canelo Crawford is going to be brilliant. It is for undisputed, even though the WBA is not listed on BoxRec. It is for undisputed. I've given my 2 cents. I've said my piece on this. I'm going with Canelo Álvarez to win. The only way I would change my mind on this one would be, as I said in the prediction video, if it was like the weigh-in or something and Canelo was literally limping on the stage, or he had an injury that was, apparent that it was an injury. Like, you're looking and you're like, yeah, he's not right. Other than that, I think Canelo wins this fight, and he probably wins it on a reasonably comfortable points decision. That's what I'm thinking. But again, I'm just looking forward so much to this fight. I just think it's going to be epic. It's going to be it's just going to be amazing. Obviously, in other news, it's been announced. We already knew this fight was going to happen. We pretty much kind of all knew when it broke last week that this was rumored to be happening. I know Joe Parker tried to do, in a very funny way, he's doing, is it Kerry Russell or someone who does those videos for him? He tried to kind of play it off. We all kind of knew what was going on. So it was announced last night that Joseph Parker will take on Fabio Wardley on October the 25th at the O2 Arena in London, live on The Zone. It's rumoured as well that date, October 25th, is Boxer's first show with the BBC. It's just a rumour at the minute, okay? And the rumoured headline fight, irrespective of the date, whether it gets pushed forward or back or whatever, is going to be Fraser Clark versus Jamie TKV. Now, if they went up against one another, just from a style point of view, Clark TKV, that I don't think has the makings of a great fight. When I look at both their styles, I don't think it does. This, on the other hand, does have the makings of a good fight. I think that, look, I'm going to make Joseph Parker firm favourite. As simple as, he's more proven at world level. He's done more in his career. He's got more experience. He's not that much older. I think he's only about 3-4 years older than Fabio Wardley. But for me, Joe Parker wins this fight. There's just no ifs or buts. Joseph Parker wins this fight. I just think the experience... Look, you saw the experience kind of come into it against Justice Hooney. And Justice Hooney is not the most experienced as a pro, but he's been doing this for a very, very long time, high-level amateur, all that. And you really saw it come into full effect in that fight. Yeah, obviously, Fabio Wardley was able to pull it out of the bag, but, you know, it just... I think with Joe Parker, it's going to be a mountain too big. I think, in my opinion, for him to overhaul, and I like the fact that both guys are staying active. I respect the fact that both guys, they have guaranteed world title shots. All they have to do is wait. And they could wait, they can continue fighting. And when you're in that position, when you're a mandatory, Joe Joyce should have learned that lesson. You're in a privileged position where you're not obligated at all to fight, you know, the cream of the crop or anything like that. You don't have to do it. Both guys are willing to do it, and both guys, one of them is going to lose their mandatory shot because they're all interim champion. So one of them is going to lose their title shot, but they're willing to put that on the line for this fight. So, in my opinion, that warrants even more respect from both guys. Absolutely. In my opinion, like, if you're willing to put it on the line like this, and you have a world title fight lined up, you don't necessarily need to take it. For me, all the respect in the world go out to both these guys. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. What else is there? There's everything boxing is where I get most of my news from. Now, we have seen some things this week. This was an interesting one. Steffi Bull, right? This was boxing news. I have to be careful with the wording of this, obviously. Steffi Bull has been given a 10-year sentence. The former world champion trainer, I think he trained Terry Harper at one stage. And who else did he train? What was his name? Jason Cunningham. Didn't he train him as well? World champion box trainer Steffi Bull has been given a 10-year sentence for conspiracy to supply the old how you doing. He pleaded not guilty to the charge, but later admitted his involvement in the exchange in both his house and his gym. Boxing, no matter what level it's at, and no matter how much society changes, boxing has always had that aspect in it, where there's been, I mean, at the end of the day, like, it does kind of amaze me when people mention, you know, MTK and the people associated with that. And what amazed me is even people who were in boxing and who would have known very much so about the history of boxing, they still acted as though, and again, I'm not saying that the person who was apparently heading to MTK was a good person. He certainly isn't. But they act like he was just like a once-off. And like that, you know, everything is above board. Like boxing, you go back to the 1920s, the 1930s, and it was just mob so Sonny Liston. You know, some people believe that he was bumped off by the mafia. You know, it was just, what was the guy's name? Al Capone was ringside at Jack Dempsey fights. Everything, you're never going to get away from it. And that's just been the history of boxing. So, reading something like that, am I surprised? Not in the least. Did anyone see Jay Opataya on TalkSport? Jay Opataya is one of my favourite fighters for a variety of reasons. But goddamn, he is scary. Man just looks mean. Man just looks like he's just constantly angry. And the F-bombs were flying on TalkSport. It was hilarious. Apparently he is going to face his mandatory on November the 2nd. Obviously the plan for him is still to fight Zurdo. He wants to become undisputed at cruiserweight before going up to heavyweight. I respect that. I admire that. I admire that he has a chance to go up to heavyweight now and start, do what he wants to do. But he's been world champion twice now at cruiserweight, but he doesn't want to just be the former cruiserweight champion. He wants to emulate the likes of Usyk, Holyfield. And he's mentioned David Haye as well. He obviously wasn't undisputed, but he was, as near as makes no difference. He only had Steve Cunningham standing in his way with the IBF. He wants to do what they did. Unify. If you can't become undisputed, at least unify. You know, that sort of way. So we recognise that Jay Apatow is the best at cruiserweight, but I think he wants no doubt in his mind, because you could say, and look, fair point. You say Jay Apatow is the best at cruiserweight. Yeah, but Zurdo has 2 belts. Okay, whereas David Haye was the best at cruiserweight. A fight against Steve Cunningham would have been interesting. Steve Cunningham had no chin though. Very good fighter, but very chinny, even at cruiserweight, especially at heavyweight. David Haye probably would have won. He was the consensus number 1. You know, that sort of way. So I think that's what he wants. He doesn't want any doubt. If he goes to heavyweight, you could say, well, we think he was the best at 100 or 200 pounds. But, Zurdo had these, So there's that. Offer for AJ to fight in Ghana. Eddie Hearn has stated that an offer has been made for Anthony Joshua to fight in Ghana. Let's have it. I didn't even see this during the week. I think it would be incredible for Anthony Joshua to fight in Africa. What you're doing, site deals, a lot depends on when the site wants the show. If Ghana come back and say we'd like January or February, that's the offer. Oh wow. Now again, no names mentioned or anything like that. Yeah, we get that, we understand that, but that's really interesting if they can do it in Ghana. That would be amazing. Him against Piccoli, him against Jared Anderson. I'm thinking of those names because I'd probably expect AJ to beat both of them now at this point. I mean, a year ago I would have said Piccoli every day of the week, but the way he's been looking lately and the way that he's looking physically, I'd say AJ could probably take that fight. As in, like, take it and win. That's what I mean, take it as in he's going to win. But yeah, I think boxing is, look, I've said this about several sports, F1, World Championship, why is there no race in Africa? Boxing, world champion, okay, fight in Africa, it's a universal sport, Africa's there. I would love to see it. There's a show in Nigeria on October the 1st or 2nd, it's Independence weekend, that weekend. Amir Khan is doing the show. I know not a lot of Nappers fighters are fighting on it, and Ade, I think, is hosting. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be epic, and I think the atmosphere there is going to be just electric. And could you just imagine Anthony Joshua in Ghana or somewhere like that? It would be phenomenal. Eddie Hearn is planning a Monaco show for December the 6th. I don't like the Monaco shows. I just think the atmosphere takes away from the fights. I think the fights end up being like a sparring session. I think it's because of the atmosphere in Monaco. It's like the Grand Prix. It's not conducive to entertainment, if you know what I mean. The 3 fighters who could be on it are Joe Cordina, Johnny Fisher, and Josh Warrington. Yeah, look to see Josh Warrington back out at some point. I still think he has plenty left. I really truly do. I think he has plenty still left in the tank. Moses Atema to return on December the 13th. Okay, Frank Warren has stated. That's good. That's good to know. We need to keep matching them good. I think that Moses Atema, he could go next week if he wanted to, given how dominant he was against Dylan White. And I think make hay while the sun shines. Match him a little bit tougher. Kubrat Pulev may now be free. We don't know what's going to happen with Michael Hunter. We don't know what's going to happen with the WBA situation. I do, if it's feasible, do Kubrat Pulev versus Moses Atema. I think there for a sec, Moses Atema, because I think that fight is really, really good. Makes a lot of sense from a matchmaking point of view. Kubrat Pulev will bring him rounds. I know he's been stopped a few times, but he is a wily vet, and he can. I don't think he'd have a sniff of prayer him winning, but he'd be awkward, and he'd be just, I think he might spoil a little bit, and it'd be something that Temba would have to get used to over a long distance. So yeah, I'd be all for that fight. The WBO have yet to grant an extension to Alexander Usyk for his mandatory, mainly due to the video clip of him dancing last week. So in theory, we should know probably this week what is going to transpire with that whole Alexander Usyk situation, because we don't know. Obviously, the can's been kicked down the road now by Joseph Parker taking the fight against Fabio Wardley. So it's obviously going to put the kibosh on that mandatory for the immediate time. But if they come back and they say, oh, well, we're not going to give you an exemption, well, then does he get stripped? And then if the mandatory challenger already has a fight lined up, then surely you can't strip him for not fighting the mandatory because he's already got a fight lined up. You know what I mean? So I'd say more than likely he'll keep that belt, and then he will fight next year. Listen, I love Alexander Usyk. I've said it several times. One of my favorite fighters. I respect the man, both in and outside of the ring, the utmost. Honestly, the respect that I have for Alexander Usyk it's through the roof. Not just as a fighter, just as a human being itself. He really is. People talk about role models, and I have to laugh because of how ridiculous it is. But I hope to God it's still not the case now. But I remember a time, I actually can't believe people did this, but people were actually acting, and this was like 2017, 2018, were acting like Conor McGregor is a role model for kids growing up. And that's my reaction at the time. It's like, nah, he's not. Alexander Usyk is what you would want your son or daughter, even son or daughter, that's what you call a man. That's what you call a good person. That's someone who has honour, who has respect. I remember years ago, people used to say that, Conor McGregor's a great role model. Oh yeah, how to be a degenerate 101. Yeah, you want to end up like him? Well, there you go, do what he did. Only problem is you'll probably end up in jail. Seriously, but Alexander Usyk, all the respect in the world for him, but if your mandatory is called your mandatory, it's called, simple as. Because where's the book stop, right? If you give an exemption to Alexander Usyk, you're going to have to do it. You know what I mean, right? For me, if a rule states you have to fight your mandatory, you have to fight it, right? Unless there's a unification, which obviously will trump it, fair enough. But it's not gonna when you're undisputed. So for me, there's no ifs or buts. You have to fight your mandatory. So that's what I got to say on this. That's my 2 cents. I think that's pretty much it. We did see that outrageous exhibition between Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather get announced for next year at some stage. Ugh. I know, ugh. But I'm not really seeing much else after that. So I think we'll call it there. People, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you could, smash the like button. I would greatly appreciate it. Hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. And people, have a great week. I am going home on Friday. All things considered, the tube strikes are going to be a flipping nightmare in the city this week. It's going to be, honestly, it's going to be chaos in the city this week. But I am going home this weekend, so we'll be doing a watch along of both Paddy Donovan and Lewis Crooker. The reason why I haven't spoken so much about Donovan Crooker is I'll do it in a separate video on that one. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe. All of that good stuff, people. Until next time. Peace and love.